going on? This is Andrew.
Oh, hey, what's going on, man?
How you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you? Where are you guys?
I am backstage at the Orleans Arena.
The Orleans Arena. Where's that?
In Las Vegas, Nevada.
There you go. What what hotel you staying at?
You know, we push out at like 3 tonight, so I'm just gonna get dragged around the strip, wasted until 3 o'clock, and then get on the bus and roll out to San Diego for the last show of the tour.
Nice. And then what?
Yeah.
And then what's planned?
And then I'm going to go home and I'm going to get married.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and then I get a couple weeks off, and then we head out to Japan to do a Japanese tour, and then back to the States to do a full headlining tour in February.
Cool. The dates lined up for that? Are you coming up to Calgary?
You know, I I don't know that we're going to make it up to Calgary. I think the only Canada date is going to be Toronto.
Yeah.
Just because basically what we did was we sort of tried to mimic the routing of the Panic tour, just to kind of capitalize on the new fans on this tour. So we're just gonna and not to mention that we've been on the road for like a year, so we're all like, get us home. So we it's kind of a short tour, but we'll be home by March and start working on new music and just kind of chilling out and hanging around town for a little while.
Jack stuff or something corporate stuff?
Probably Jack stuff is my guess. I mean, I don't claim to really have any clear idea of what I plan on doing next, other than the fact that it involves going home and resting and writing new music. You know, it's like, you know, at this point, for me, it's like we sort of went from sort of that whole heavy year being sick right back onto tour, and I'm just anxious to kind of get back to living a normal life for a second, and seeing if that doesn't inspire some good new tunes. You know? Yeah,
I hear you. Maybe a little happier now with the whole marriage thing. You never know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, I mean, everything's been great. I mean, obviously, like it was an interesting year, but it's all been really positive, and it's been great being back out on the road. The tours have been insane, and the band's having a great time. So, so we're all really enjoying ourselves. But I think we'll definitely look forward to getting a little bit of time at home and getting to see what our own beds look like for more than a night. You know. Yeah,
exactly. How'd you hook up with these guys? I mean, I know a lot of artists put out solo records just because they feel maybe it won't fit with the band and stuff, and I'm wondering, how'd you hook up with these guys? Like, how come no Something Corporate guys decide, maybe I'll drum on tour or something like that? Are they tired?
No, I mean, it was one of these things where the band, I mean, all of us in Something Corporate, we got back, I mean, it was kind of like, I guess, probably spring of 2004, and we were all just burnt out on being on the road, burnt out on each other. I mean, not to say, I mean, I still see the guys, all the time. We talk every week, and we're, the best of friends, but the reality was we had just spent 3 or 4 long years on the road, kind of in our, in our early 20s, like, not having really any grasp of reality whatsoever. We had kind of lost our minds, so we were like, screw this, let's go home and chill out. And in that time, Josh wrote a record with his band Firescape, and I sort of went off on my own, and really not really with the intention of putting a record out, but just kind of started writing music. I was finally home for the first time in years and doing what felt natural to me, which was just going out, living my life, and writing songs about it, And so then eventually, after I'd done that, with my producer for several months, we had like a stockpile of tunes that we really liked, and then Bob, who played his guitar with Something Corporate, actually came out and he played guitar on the remaining songs that we hadn't done guitar on, and overdubbed other guitar tracks. And at that point I'd been working with Tommy Lee on his record, so he played the drums on most of the Jack stuff. And I had known Bob, my guitarist, from obviously playing with Something Corporate, but his band River City High was one of the first bands Something Corporate ever toured with. So him and his drummer from River City High, J-Mac, came over and to play drums for us. And then one of their friends, another Richmond, Virginia guy named John Sullivan, came out to play bass. And we sort of put the band together like pretty much after the record was completed, or right as the record was being finished. And got the show on the road. I got sick in the middle there, but recovered, and then got the show back on the road. And that's sort of how it all came to be.
How are you feeling now?
I feel great. Yeah, I feel fantastic. Yeah, it's been a long road back, but having music as kind of my motivator was a huge factor. Being able to to know that as soon as I was well enough, I'd be able to go out and play shows and see the fans that I had been missing. My time off the road. It was definitely a big incentive to get healthy as fast as possible, and I worked every angle to push myself as hard as I could, and it really sort of got me back on my feet. I would say a lot quicker than I probably would have had I not had this great job.
Mm-hmm. Now you mentioned Josh and you used to co-write with him, and now you're doing the stuff by yourself.
Right?
How is it different?
Well, truthfully, we never actually co-wrote anything. He would on each of the albums that we put out, he wrote 2 or 3 songs on each of those records.
Oh, okay.
But those songs he sort of wrote individually. To some extent, I would go in there, and if a lyric didn't really make sense to me or for me to connect to, I would tweak things here and there. But for the most part, the songs that Josh wrote on our records were 100% his songs, and the songs that I wrote on the records were 100% mine. So really the writing strategy has been exactly the same. I've been writing music since I was 9 years old, and Josh and I and the band sort of got together my junior year of high school. But for me, I would argue sort of the method behind Jack's Mannequin is probably a lot more true to my original form, than what I was doing in something corporate in that sense. Not to say that we're not going to do another record, because I think we definitely will, and I'm sure we're going to tour here soon enough. But getting back home and writing songs, just vegging out and figuring in my own head out is kind of always how I've written since I was a little kid.
Yeah. Do you ever write on guitar? I mean, Mixtape sounds like it's a guitar. It could be a something corporate song, at least. That seems like the one on the record that kind of fits in musically with the rest of that stuff.
Yeah,
no. Guitar, or was it?
No, I don't even. I barely know how to play the guitar.
Okay.
I wrote the mixtape on piano, and I definitely had every intention behind it being more of a guitar song. It felt much more of a rock song, and that the riff at the top of that is something that that Bobby and myself and our producer really collaborated on, and really tried to kind of really try to sink our teeth into it as a real kind of guitar rock track. The album itself, most of the guitar sounds are not very heavy. We kind of went for a little bit more of that the fidelity of the guitars being a little bit more of a clean kind of dirty, raw but clean kind of sound, as opposed to what a lot of bands are doing now, which is just super hyped up heavy distortion. You know what I mean? Which I feel like it's sort of lost its strength in rock music because it's been so overdone at this point. So we kind of decided to go the other direction. But yeah, we really collaborated with Bob on that song, because he's a fantastic guitarist, and he sort of really helped bring the rock and roll element out of that track.
That's awesome. I heard the Dire Straits song kind of inspired it.
The mixtape, the idea behind the mixtape was sort of propelled by this Dire Straits song, "Walking in the Wild West End," which basically prompted me to have this thought to start collecting songs in the time that I was, the girl I wrote the record for, who I was separated from at the time, and I got this idea, maybe I'll make her, some epic mixtape, and try and send it her way. And I kind of got that idea after listening to this song, "Walking in the Wild West," and it really just made me think of her. And so I started kind of, as songs would pop up that I would hear throughout the days or weeks or months or whatever, that really reminded me of my now fiance, I started compiling all these songs, and then it got to the point where I was like, when am I ever going to give this to her that it's going to make sense? So instead of actually, giving it to her, I wrote a song about giving it to her. You know what I mean? That was the idea. And instead of making the mixtape per se, I just wrote a song about making a mixtape.
That's awesome. Same girl the whole record's about pretty much, right? Who you're marrying now.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
It's a pretty harsh record at times. I mean, there's some deep stuff there. What does she think when she hears it now?
You probably have to ask her.
Yeah.
you know, it's one of these things. You know, we've dated for many years, and since before I was even putting out records, you know. But at the same time, I mean, it's one of these things that with any girl that I've ever dated in my life, I've always been very upfront about the fact that, like, I write music about what goes on in my life, and if you happen to be in my life, there's a good chance you're going to be a target or at least a subject matter, you know, and you know, and it's the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know, and it's, you know, I think in some senses it's unfortunate, but it's the only way that I can be true to, you know, what's been true to me for my whole life, which is songwriting and being able to express myself through it. So, yeah, she's a trooper. I mean, obviously, like when she heard it for the first time, like, you know, after it was done, you know, and we had since sort of gotten back together, and I sort of gritted my teeth and put it out there, and I was like, you know, check it out, you know, it may not all make sense, but just know that it's, you know, really at the end of the day, it was all about coming full circle and realizing that this was the place I was supposed to be, you know, and I, you know, I think for the most part she gets it, you know, and she hasn't stopped showing up to gigs or anything yet, so I think we're okay.
No, that's good. I want to go through a couple of tracks on the record, you know, kind of track by track type thing.
Sure.
First track, Holiday from Real, I mean, it establishes a whole bunch of themes on the record. Stuff that, well, same kind of something corporate themes that you were writing about back then, but now, I mean, California's a big, huge influence on this one. Girls, drinking, weed, living freely, the breakup, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I know you're a big pop brownies you're into, right?
Oh goodness gracious! I don't know. You know, I mean, whatever. I'm not gonna lie or come right out or say anything to be, you know, from one sense or the other. But yeah, I mean, you get the idea from the record.
Yeah. I'm just wondering. There's a line in that song I just love: "Score an eighth from the lesbian in Venice." Do you actually, where you get your stuff?
Yeah, I mean, largely while we were recording this record, I mean, I work out of a studio in Santa Monica, and yes, there's definitely a contingent of lesbian traffickers that ride their bikes around and make deliveries for us. So it's most of that stuff. I mean, that's Holiday was really the song. You know, the reason it's first largely on that record is because it was really the song that sort of propelled the philosophy of the album and almost really the life I chose to lead while recording the album, you know, which was essentially, like you said, you know, it was kind of, you know, just coming from a place where I really felt kind of bound up and frustrated and didn't really have an outlet to vent those frustrations, and I sort of came home and said screw it and just chilled out and you know, try to, like you said, live a very free and somewhat irresponsible life, and in turn write songs about it, you know, and it was and California, and being in Southern California and living by the beach, it was such a huge part of it that I wanted the record to be really visual, and that when people listen to it, I wanted them to be able to sort of put themselves in the place of each song, you know, and where the song was coming from, and kind of connect to it on not just maybe an emotional level, but maybe, you know, actually see what I was seeing at the time that I was thinking about a lot of the things I was writing about.
Yeah. Was there a lot of thought process that went into the order of the record? Was it written in that order? I mean, it's very chronological.
It's largely written in that order. Some things got sort of mixed around. Some of the songs were a little broader. That it sort of lent themselves to pushing the album order along, got moved around, like Dark Blue, though it was the last song I wrote for the record, ended up being in the middle of the album, but it sort of, philosophically speaking, that song was really about coming full circle, so I thought it would be interesting to put it in the middle, you know, and kind of prove that it was just a big circle, you know.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it comes after La La La, which, I mean, talks about being done writing songs about that girl and everything like that, right?
And then there I come right back writing some more, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, and that was really the thing. I mean, that was kind of the story of that year. It was like, you know, the push and pull of what a breakup is, you know. It's like you think, you know, you get to a point, you know, and it changes from day to day, and you think you're going to be, you think you've gotten over, or you think you've moved on, or you think at least it's the last time you're going to talk about it for a while, and then it just comes right back at you. I mean, especially when you still care and when you've been with somebody for a long time, you know, and that's sort of, you know, really largely what the record was about, was just that kind of push and pull, and, you know, constantly retreading the same ground, but, you know, in a different place and time, you know.
Mm-hmm. Your vocal melodies are just unreal. Reminds me very much of Brian Wilson, the Beach Boys, especially La La La. I mean,
Thank you.
Made for Each Other sounds like a Beach Boys song, or it could have been.
That was the idea.
Really?
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely. There was, I mean, that for me really like one of the biggest things that kick-started my writing process for this record was really falling in love with Pet Sounds. You know, it was a huge motivator, and it was sort of like, the Something Corporate stuff we had really, not even intentionally so, but just by our affiliations with Drive-Thru Records and the tours that came our way as a result of that, had sort of been, in my opinion, pigeonholed into a scene, and like, that not to say, I mean, that scene has been extremely good to us, but it's still kind of like, I felt it was like a little ironic, that my like piano band is, singing kind of more or less sappy songs about girls was like being called somehow pop punk, and I was like, well, there's nothing punk rock about me or my band, and
punk rock princess,
and I did, yeah, exactly, but that was about her, not me, you know what I mean, and in that sense, like I didn't really feel like, I never listened to punk music at that point, I mean, I didn't know anything about punk, so I was like, how could I be punk? I don't even know what they're talking about, and so I think I sort of got to the point where I was in a position to kind of expand with this record, and by doing it doing it on my own and not really attaching the Something Corporate name to it, the hope was that people would sort of start listening to the songs for what they were, as opposed to like what they had been, what I think had been perceived to be over the course of several years, which was like somehow a pop punk, front man or something, and which was very much not ever what I intended to be,
Well, the song is kind of punk rock, at least in the idea. Last Straw, I know it's not on the record, but I just found it the other day. I mean, I know you said go out and download it, whatever, cause it's not.
Yeah, I love that song, yeah.
But writing about politics now, that's different.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of, I mean, I generally avoid it. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be as easy to avoid on the next one, just with the way that the past 4 years have gone. Yeah, but I mean, it was funny because it wasn't really so much trying to write about politics as it was just like that was a really interesting time. It's sort of, like I said, I mean, it was all, the subject matter of the record is pretty evident, but the reason the politics came up just happened to be because like in the middle of all of this, stuff that was going on in my life, it was like we were in the middle of this election, which was like, obviously like where we live was just a huge battle, and and it was so heated everywhere in America, and everywhere you went, and you couldn't avoid it, and it was impossible not to have an opinion about it. And I, unfortunately, like right around that election was just another one of these like kind of dark periods of time, and I was sort of holed up in my house, just like drowning my sorrows, watching President Bush win yet another election, and it definitely,
let's get that word right, steal.
It made it yeah, exactly, steal. Yeah, and yeah, it definitely manifested itself into that track, no question about it. What prompted the entire writing of that song was like a drawing that I had done that was a drawing of it started off as a drawing of Snoop Dogg that I had copied out of like a Rolling Stone, and then somehow I managed to copy a picture of George Bush like right below it, and it was a picture of Snoop Dogg bitch slapping George Bush, and the original lyric was what's the lyric now? It's sometimes it's all I can do when I think about the president, but the original lyric was oh god, it was that's when I drew that sketch of Snoop Dogg beating up the president or something to that effect.
I'd like to see that picture. You should throw it up on the website or something.
Yeah. I guess it hasn't probably popped up, but yeah, it's a pretty funny. Yeah, it was actually titled Snoop Dogg versus the Evildoer. But I'll try and get it up there for entertainment.
Please do. We're talking about that song. It's not on the record, but you said go out and download it. I'm wondering how you feel about the downloading of music, and do you think it's helping you or harming you more?
I got to be honest. My opinion of it is really gotten to a very simple place, which is it's not going to stop. Don't fight it. You know what I mean? You want your fans to buy records. You know what I mean? You want to be getting. You want to be that actual tangible support of your band, because like when you're signed to a record deal, you know, and when you work hard and you do what you do, it's like, yeah, it would be great if your fans, you know, respected what you did enough to go out and actually, you know, spend the money on it, especially when you paid a lot of money to make it. But that being said, it's like there are so many benefits to it, and in my opinion, the reality is if you're making good records, you know, like the first time a kid discovers you, they may end up downloading it. If you do a good job, you know, connecting to them and they like the music you make, I venture a guess that on the next record, when the next record comes out, they're not going to download it and they're going to buy it, you know. And I think the downloading really has done something that has accounted for something that the music industry has stopped doing, which is artist development, you know. And it's like, you know, downloading tracks now in some ways is the way that artists go from being sort of unknown to actually developing a career and, you know, having continued record sales growing and whatnot, because the more people that find out about you, they'll eventually buy your next record if you stay true to them and stay true to your art, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
It keeps it so you have to do sort of it keeps you working, you know what I mean? But it's like people want everything handed to them, and it's like, yeah, it's not a day and age where like now you can just put a great pop song together and on one song sell 2 million records, you know. But should it be that? You know what I mean? I don't necessarily think so. I think bands should have to work for it, you know, and downloading makes us all work a little bit harder, but it also gives access, you know, quick access to music that the radio doesn't provide for our bands anymore, because the radio stopped playing the kind of music that we all listen to, you know.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Largely, at least, you know, there are some stations that have really carried the torch, but they're few and far between. Most of them are dominated by corporate radio infrastructure that just does not, you know, that's goal is to sell beer advertising, not to propel good musicians or good music, you know.
Exactly. Well, our station's different. That's our goal.
And that's the thing. It's like, and you know, we appreciate it. And it's like, into any station that's going to play my band, it's like I'm extremely grateful, and I'm always willing to do whatever it takes to help them and be involved with the stations. You know, it's like. But that being said, to the stations that don't, I'm very thankful that downloading exists, because how else is a kid going to decide whether or not he wants to hear your band or buy your record if he doesn't have access to your music, you know, and downloading gives that access, you know, and whatever. Yeah, it's free and it's stolen, but those kids come to the shows and they buy T-shirts, and like I said, if you're good to your fans, they'll buy your next record. They won't steal it, you know.
Exactly. Now, I wonder, like a song like The Mixtape, I mean, it went to what? Was it number 1 on VH1 or MTV or something?
Yeah,
like that?
yeah, it got number 1 on VH1, yeah.
But not on the radio. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. If a song's doing that well on the video, why... Like, it's stupid.
If I could understand any of it, if any of it made any sense to me, I would, you know, I'd already have a hit, you know. But the reality is, for me, it's like every record I've made has sold over 200,000 copies. You know what I mean? And it's like, and you know, all the tour, I've you know, in the years I've been on tour, it has been a rarity that that we've, you know, had shows bomb and that we haven't had people come to the gigs, and you know what I mean. And it's like I own a house and I have a good life, and and everybody in my camp is well fed and well taken care of, and you know, it's not necessarily like, you know, as glamorous as selling a gazillion records, but I'm over the past 6 or 7 years, I've made a great living being a working musician, and I'm you know, and if that's what I did for the rest of my life, you know, and never had the radio blow up a track for me and put me at number 1 somewhere, then so be it. As long as I still got people who want to buy my records, you know, I'll keep playing, you know.
Exactly. I'll help you as much as I can, though.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, we'll take all the love we can get. That's for sure. You know, it's like I'm not one of these, you know, screw radio guys. I'm just like, but I do get confused by it. You know, the stuff that gets played that doesn't sell, and the stuff that sells because it just gets jammed down people's throats. It's like, it is what it is. You know, well, I figure one of these days I'm just gonna keep writing songs, and one of these days something's gonna click, and these stations on and decide to play some our music. You know, we'll see what happens.
Good. I'm taking up a lot of your time, but I got 5 quick questions, 1-word answers.
Okay, cool.
Alcohol or marijuana?
I'm going pot on that one.
Lennon or McCartney?
Oh man, you've got me in a. That's like a very. That's a tough question to answer, man. Oh, I've been doing Imagine lately. I've been listening. I just saw.
You guys are playing
the Imagine. Well, I just saw the Imagine movie the other day, and I'm really boning up on my Lennon because I would definitely say, like, historically speaking, I've been a McCartney person, you know. And I'll say this, I'll go McCartney, but with the reverence for the fact that Lennon is still very high at the top of the list and in strong contention.
Fair enough. iPod or CDs?
I mean, I'm using my iPod a lot now, but I still buy records.
Cool. Vinyl?
Records and CDs, yeah.
Cool.
I buy vinyl still, yeah.
Favorite song to play live?
Favorite song to play live? We do this cover of the Everly Brothers, Dream, which I really enjoyed it live. Yeah.
That's awesome. And one word, Jack's Mannequin.
Beach. Beach. I'll give you one noun, and so let's say beach. I'm going beach.
That works. Themes up the record, kind of.
Yeah.